Good evening and welcome to the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. I'll call the meeting to order and ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Great. I would ask that we take a moment of silence to reflect on all of the events going on. Thank you. In accordance with Mass General Law, this meeting is being recorded by LCAT. Is anyone else in the audience if they could identify themselves? None. Public comments. Anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? No one raising their hand online. Hey, council comments. Is there any counselor with a comment this evening?
Through the chair.
Sure.
I would just like to say I was able to attend Chief Morsette's retirement party, which was absolutely fantastic. Ceremony in the afternoon was extremely well done. Kudos to the fire department. And once again, congratulations to Paul on his retirement.
Absolutely. I would echo those same sentiments. And it was nice to also have that transition ceremony, not only to wish Paul a good retirement, but also Chris as, the official new fire chief for the town. So that was nice. And it was well attended. So that was, it's great. The only other comment that I had was Kathy and I think some of the people from the school attended Zoom last Tuesday for, I think it was called Project 211 plus 21. Not quite sure what that stands for, but it was essentially just about education advocacy funding, given the upcoming fiscal year budget challenges that a number of communities in Massachusetts are facing, especially around education and special education. So it was kind of interesting, and they had some documentation for us to review, but there'll be more to come from there. Any other council comments? Hey, town manager report. Hi, Tom.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hot off the press. So attached are the project reports for the weeks of February 17th and the 24th for the high school and auditorium. Projects continue to be on time and on budget. We had the topping off ceremony for the new school on February 26th. Also another well-attended event. I think it's nice to see so many people come out for everything. This one very exciting, obviously, sort of commemorating the placing of the final piece of steel on the building. So it's a unbelievable benchmark in the progress of the project, and it's nice to see these every step, one step closer to the new high school. So thanks to everybody who attended. Another fantastic day in town. Obviously, the FY26 budget process is well underway. Kim, Rebecca, and I are meeting with department heads to discuss their level one submissions for the year. Having every possible conversation about every iteration of every budget for this year and sort of what that looks like for next year and the years to come. So obviously a lot of moving parts, some of which we'll probably get touched on this evening, but it's sort of taken up the majority of everyone's time in the last few weeks trying to get all the numbers squared away. I mentioned this last time. The Historical Commission and American Legion Post 293 teamed up to kick off the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Saturday, April 19th at 10, the Legion will commemorate the shot heard around the world with a march from the Legion Post to the Town Hall lawn for a ceremony. Obviously, everyone's invited to join and attend the celebration, similar to the same kind of thing we have for Veterans Day comments. There'll be quite a bit of a historical kind of tinge to this one. Ken Hancock has done a lot of research on our veterans from the area. Obviously, back then was East Village and before even, but a lot of cool history, certainly American history, before there was even America. So it'll be a pretty fun day. So that's April 19th at 10. Town of East Long Meadow is holding their annual Earth Day festivities on Friday, April 11th and Saturday, April 12th. The events kick off with an Earth Day festival here at the Senior Center on April 11th from 1 to 4:30. There's eco-friendly demonstrations, a plant sale, seed library crafts, and then supply pickup for all the Earth Day volunteers. The following morning, April 12th, the cleanup will be held from 9 to 11 with a additional supply pickup for those of you who didn't get your stuff the day before from 8:30 to 9. And you can contact the health department for more details there. Additionally, our recycling coordinator, Liz Bone, is hosting a recycling forum this Friday at 12:30 here at the Council on Aging. Liz will explain the importance of recycling, how it impacts our area, and sort of a timeline of the journey of your recycling from creation to recreation. So feel free and stop by and learn from Liz, our professional on staff. Has the schools recycling and composting, and we got a good thing happening. And I just wanted to put this in there since we were talking about the budget and contracts and this, that, and the other thing. But from an economic standpoint, the town of East Long Meadow pays just over $100 to dispose a ton of trash, and about a quarter of that for a ton of recycling. So obviously, do your part for the planet and the budget. The weatherization and HVAC retrofit projects at the DPW station are complete. The town secured 2 grants, the Green Communities grant for $160,170 and an EECBG grant at $21,685. These acronyms are killing me. To fund the building envelope and energy efficiency improvement associated with the projects. The projects were also awarded more than $20,000 in incentives from National Grid. There were no costs for the town associated with these improvements, and energy efficiencies will generate an estimated utilities savings of $4,872 annually. So that's pretty great. And that was, if you remember when we did all the green community stuff, that building in particular was one of our lowest performing buildings, I guess I'll say diplomatically. And it is a lot more comfortable in the kitchen at this point. East Long Meadow PD announced today that the officers are now wearing their body-worn cameras as part of their normal patrols. Mark has a media release attached, went out today. I attached it to this. Purchase of the cameras entirely funded by a state grant by the Haley Driscoll administration. East Long Meadow Police applied for the grant in the fall of 24, ultimately awarded just over $129,000 to use towards the purchase of the cameras, related hardware and onboarding costs. Chief Mark Williams ended his release with a perfect quote, so I'll steal it. We're blessed to enjoy a great amount of support from our residents here in East Long Meadow. We do not take that for granted, and we expect that having these body cameras will only increase the amount of trust that is placed in us. And just a big thank you to the East Long Meadow Police Department for all they do to keep our community safe. Upcoming events, the recycling forum this Friday, March 14th at 12:30 at the COA. Our budget submission due April 1st at some point during the day, right? Or is it by April 1st? We'll figure it out later. Copy with the town manager, April 2nd, 10:30 at the COA. Earth Day again, April 11th from 1 to 4:30 here. The cleanup, April 12th, starts at 9. And the American Revolution ceremony is April 19th at 10 on the town hall lawn. And that's it for tonight. And I'm sure that's the first time most of you have read it because we had it for about an hour and a half. Thanks for the latitude.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Seeing none, we will move on. We have no public hearings. Under orders of the day, our first topic is financial matters. FY26 draft budget. Of course, as Tom just mentioned, town manager's budget draft isn't due to the council but until April 1st. However, I did ask, knowing all the budget discussions we've started having, and some of the situations we're facing this year, that I wanted to see what the level one solutions were in advance, so things aren't catching us by surprise. So that was documentation that Tom provided us so far. So that was just what the department heads had submitted, but not what Tom, Kim and Rebecca may review it and come up with different numbers that we'll see by April 1st. I didn't necessarily have anything in particular to discuss on it unless any counselors do. It was just more of a informational, but if anyone has any comments or questions.
I do.
Through the chair.
And actually, one of them's very, very small, and it has to do with our 250th anniversary, the celebration. I know we've been typically doing $20,000 as level funding for the celebrations, all the different ones.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if that's something you've even thought about, because I believe it's got to go in this budget
Yeah.
for that. And I don't know. And again, I just wanted to bring it up because usually what ends up happening is we don't think about the celebration and
Yeah.
until it's basically too late. And then it's like, oh,
Historical Commission won't let me do that.
yeah,
but I
last
see-
year we should have budgeted for this.
Yeah.
So
I
just
hear,
putting it out there.
yeah. So I don't know how much is going to happen this side of 4th of July.
Hmm.
So then that budget would actually be for 27. If
Right.
you know what I'm saying, if it's a 4th of July celebration, it would be in FY 27, and then we would budget it for it then. I don't know what we're doing other than the shot heard around the world here, because the 250th isn't really till July 4th, 2026, which would be in FY 27. So the budget, again,
Yeah.
we haven't had all the conversations to know
Right.
what's going to lead up to July 4th. So that's a good point. And maybe I can have a discussion with the historical commission to see what the state is putting
So-
on a huge thing.
So typically our parade, you have to pay for the bands and all before they show up to March.
Right.
So you're paying for those well before July,
Yeah.
usually in January and all, to get them to march in your July 4th parade, which happens to be the next year.
Yeah.
So it's actually
Okay.
this year's
Right.
budget that
I
you're paying.
think, okay. All right.
And
I'll
that's why. I
I'll
was
check with
bringing-
Ryan, because that budget line item basically disappears in July. We don't,
Yes,
you know what I'm
exactly.
saying? So,
It's just a lot of the marching bands and all you have to pay in advance.
okay. And so I
And
don't,
that's why I was bringing it up. It would be nice if
most
they
of,
accepted payment after the. 4th.
most of our
After they've
budget,
walked.
yeah, I think most of our budget ends up being police details and stuff.
Yeah.
That happen on the day. So the parade committee must work with someone else for the funding of some of that stuff.
Yep.
Whatever other groups in town are partnering with them. Our invoices don't come in until that July. So that account doesn't get, we're not drawing
Yeah.
off that account
Right,
now for the 4th of July.
right.
It's already expended. So in terms of any expenditures for the 4th of July parade, they don't happen in this budget till that year,
The police and stuff like
all that stuff. So the rest of it doesn't come out of the town's budget.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because it's
I
a
should,
celebration.
I'll have the
Yes, I wasn't
conversation.
sure if we were considering it.
I don't
With
know
that
if there's
being
any
said-
other events planned.
I will tell you, in the past, when we had the Board of Selectmen and all, the Appropriations Committee, every single year did not want,
I
did
recall.
not feel as though the town should be paying money towards it.
I recall.
Which I always found amusing because that was the one line that always got overridden.
Challenged, right?
All right. Well, let me have those conversations. Like I said, I don't know what else is on the docket before the actual 250th anniversary of July 4th. So,
Yep, just something,
That-
like I said.
no. It's a great point. And it may not, it's good to think about now because like you said, these things get forgot about. So if we end up talking about it
Right,
in March next year, it's because we have a whole bunch of other stuff planned on the 4th of July. I know we have a time capsule to open.
right.
And then I think we have multiple ones open, but there's one that's happening that year, the
Yes.
26th, or excuse me, 2026 calendar year. So that may be something that we want to decide to, right? If we want to bury another one, I would assume we do. We've had some brief conversations about how it's going to go, and do we want to fill up another one and do another 50-year time capsule, which is probably a good idea. It's the one that I'm talking about is over at Heritage. Yeah. So let me put the
Just
feelers
something to
out there
think
to the people and see if there's anything that we think might be planned that may require extra funding in that celebration account. Because we haven't, we've basically been putting the same amount of money in that account for a lot of years. And I think have almost always turned a couple $1,000s back. Like we haven't set call. So good point.
The next thing, through the chair,
Sure.
is the budget's coming up pretty quick. April 1st is the deadline for submission. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Finance Oversight Committee. It's a standing committee that we've had. Typically, as soon as the budget's ready, Tom is nice enough and they send it off to the Finance Oversight Committee so that they can start planning and doing their scheduling and stuff. So I just wanted to bring that up, see where we stand with it, and if everything's ready to go. I don't know if you've reached out to any of the members or not.
Conversations are still ongoing on that topic.
Ongoing as far as members or as far as having a Finance Oversight Committee?
Both.
So I know you had mentioned to me, so I double checked our rules and regs, and it is a standing committee such as the Liquor Licensing Committee, and we voted on that on purpose. So that way there, as we went along, we didn't have to worry about it. It automatically went out. I do understand, and I do think the council should do a deep dive into the budget. But I think having the Finance Oversight Committee is extremely important. It's another set of eyes, and the people that are on it have past appropriations. They've researched our budgets. They have a long length of experience with it. And again, it's one of those where, I mean, we've already voted that it's a standing committee. Obviously, as president, you have the option to remove people off of committees and replace them. But I think it's one that we just have to keep moving forwards with it until such time. If we decide not to do a Finance Oversight Committee, then we'll have to change our rules and regulations to remove it. I don't know if anyone else has the same thoughts as.
Through the chair,
Sure.
Ralph, you're a trendsetter. What you're thinking about, should you decide not to seat the committee this year?
My thought was that most of the legwork should happen at the council level. And if there's any particular topics we want to dive into, I was hoping that we would go department by department here at the council level and review everything, especially knowing that there will be numbers that, I mean, may not be a shock to the council, but are going to definitely be different than previous year's budget. And we should all be aware of that well in advance of the May public hearing when we ultimately vote on it. I don't want that to come as a surprise to anyone at the last minute. I think historically what has been problematic, among a number of things with just the Financial Oversight Committee process, is it's great that other people review it, but then it gets dumped on the council's lap at the last second. And it's too late if any councilor doesn't like recommendations that we see, because for us to try to wing it on May 28th and come up with a different number to vote on is far too late. If we tried that, well, before I was on the council, previous councils tried that and ended up appropriating an incorrect amount of money.
So through the chair.
Sure.
So I'm sure you remember the meeting both me and you were at previously. That was when the council was trying to do it and there was not a Finance Oversight Committee. The last few years, the Finance Oversight Committee has been working, and like last year, They recommended to adopt exactly as submitted. The only time that there was a difference was during COVID. And they realized that, hey, the expenses may be a little bit more. And they recommended not increasing the school budget by quite as much as they wanted. And at the end of the year, the school actually turned back to the town almost an additional $1 million. So I do understand what you're saying. I do think we should all be involved in the numbers. But I don't think we should be afraid of another set of eyes looking at it.
My concern would be that in the past, the subcommittee or the standing committee has spent from the middle of March all the way up until the budget hearing, upwards of 20 plus hours doing the deep dive on a weekly basis. How are you planning to get to that level of scrutiny at a meeting like this? We can't go on for 20 hours.
Not all in one go, but I think having the 2 meetings a month at least helps. And if we have to have a couple additional meetings on the off weeks in between.
Will we
certainly
have department heads here at those meetings?
That would be the plan, unless there's a particular department we don't feel we need.
But how would we
Representative
know
of
that at the time we sit down to talk about it, what we need and what we don't need?
I think it's the same way that the FOC had sort of approached that before. Like in advance, you have to notify a department head that you'd like them to attend. So we
Sure,
can follow the same
sure.
sort of process here. If there's any red flags that we want to talk about.
Just a point of information, we, as the standing committee last year, elected not to meet with department heads. We felt that the review with the department head with Kim and Tom was a sufficient level of scrutiny. Both of them always attended the meetings and were able to fill in the narrative about why a department head felt in a certain way about a particular expense or maybe even a cut in what they were asking for. I just think it's going to be too cumbersome a process if we try to take that on, even with meetings every other week. Personally, the benefit of the current membership on the committee includes a career commercial banker and another member who, as well as with the banker, were longstanding members of appropriation, and they brought the former appropriations committee, and they bring a level of skill, not just about, trying to get a narrative from a department head, but about forecasting budgets, what the impact of short and long-term debt does to your annual recommendations. And it's information that, unless I'm mistaken, none of us has that skill at this table, and it's essential information that we need. So personally, I would be opposed to not seating a committee this year.
I think one of my other concerns is that if too much work isn't done by the council and it's offloaded to any other oversight committee, again, knowing the budget that we're faced with this upcoming year, ultimately it's the 7 of us counselors that are going to be held accountable to the voters and everyone that's going to be dissatisfied with things that may be cut. And are we willing as individuals to take the heat for other people that may make recommendations that we personally do not agree with? I'm not. That's just my,
I would say I am. You've got a bylaw subcommittee that is doing hours and hours. Well, I know you just started, but we'll have done hours and hours of deep dive on bylaws. You have a planning matters standing committee that, and I'll be the first to say, that would be my weak link, the planning and zoning knowledge. But we have colleagues at this table who have deep experience in planning and zoning. And when they do the deep dive and bring something back to us I feel confident that I can rely on the vetting that they've already done. I think it's just we're in a year where no matter what news source you rely on, we can tell that our federal government is cutting left and right. The governor announced yesterday that there's 12 million. It could be billion, but I think it's $1 million that is being cut from the food benefits for schools and those that are eligible for SNAP benefits and such. We have a school department right now struggling with an unforeseen unfunded mandate with a significant shortfall. To me, this is not the year to change horses in the middle of the stream. I think we need that deep dive done and brought back to us. If the concern is that it comes too late in the cycle, I can respect that. Then that would be incumbent on the finance committee to tighten up their schedule and have it back so there's multiple weeks in between. Excuse me, Jamie, for saying this, but for the longest time, LCAT covered those FOC meetings. In the past couple of years, they weren't able to. I don't know the reason, but if scheduling wise, if that were to be possible again, then I would say the council has an obligation to watch those videos when they get posted, because that's where you will hear the information you need to at least make a note about to ask, when we get to that point.
And I would have no issue with the Finance Oversight Committee, if they see an area that jumps out to them, to relay that to the town council via email, so that during their normal meetings, we can take a deeper dive into it ourselves also. I mean, a lot of the stuff is straightforward. So health insurance, there's nothing you can do. The numbers are the numbers, and a lot of the numbers are like that. And even though they're extremely offensive and the increases are just, some of them are just jumping, there's nothing you can do about it. And we've already done, the Finance Oversight Committee had suggested to take a look at our insurance and see about maybe going in a different direction. The town manager did, which saved us money. I forgot the number. That's unlike me. But again, that was one of the suggestions that came up, and I thought it was great. Those are people that have been looking at it for a long time, and they're going to come up with suggestions on ways to save money and adjust that I wouldn't think about. And like I said, I do think, to your point, I do think the council can set time aside to be going through at the same time. But this way here, we've got another set of eyes to say, hey, maybe you missed this. Take another look here, or take another look here. And ultimately, whatever the decision, it comes down to us taking a vote at the end. So if we're not comfortable with recommendations by them, we can change those. And we should. Like you said, ultimately it's us that were elected. But I do think we should stay the course that we're on. I think everyone needs to look at this in depth. I spent a few hours already and my head was spinning last night.
Through the chair.
Sure.
A couple different thoughts on it. One is I can see and hear kind of both sides of this argument, and it seems like there's room for a bit of a compromise in between. Kind of, I think I'm hearing you correctly. I think you're mainly concerned with some type of abdication of the council's actual authority and giving up that authority. Me, myself, I would appreciate some more knowledgeable people acting more on behalf of the council, taking a look at it and just passing along recommendations. I don't think there's any harm in that. Maybe asking for an expedited timeline, because I think I kind of share your concern of it kind of arriving at the 11th hour and not having an adequate time to really go through it. I also think maybe my newness to the council. I hear your concern. I would like to see some type of council hearings. Again, more expedited. I think, when we get copy the budget or munis sheets in front of us, we don't see what actually goes behind the scenes and the operational aspects of it. And not in an adversarial way, but hearing from the department heads about their operation and how this money translates into services, I think is critical for us in terms of our own decision making. I would err on the side of a more robust process than an exclusionary one. But I do think I personally would not want to be sitting here in late June and seeing a lot of this for the first time. But I also feel like losing that expertise and that extra set of eyes, especially amongst people who do this for a living, I would appreciate seeing that as well. So that helps in anybody's decision making, or that's kind of where I kind of come down on it.
Do you have something in there?
I was thinking more, maybe this goes along with what you just said, like working collaboratively with the FOC instead of them or us. And I don't know if it's something, because they meet, once they start meeting, it's once a week,
Every week for 2 hours.
2 hours a week. Is there, instead of doing it at a council meeting, can we attend their meetings?
We'd
Yeah,
have to
because they're
post
open.
both
Right.
meetings.
Well, they
It would
always
have to
are
be a
posted.
council meeting.
It would have to be,
It would have to be a council meeting on top of
And
that, because
a
one of the
meeting.
concerns in the past too is that too many counselors are in the room. And that's definitely
A
bordering on the
violation,
open meeting law
yeah.
violations.
right.
So,
So we'll post.
yeah, we could post for both.
When I look at the town council, I think that we all bring to the table a different set of gifts and talents. I've always felt that way in all of the roles I've served in this town. You can't expect everyone on the board or committee to be able to do everything. Our town manager has an attorney to ask when he has issues that are not of his area of expertise. This has come up numerous times, and I'm a little frustrated that it's coming up again. I have always spoken that the Financial Oversight Committee offers a tremendous assistance to the council. They're not acting on our behalf. They're not telling us what to do, but they're doing the stuff that, quite frankly, I'm not able to do. I looked at the budget. I've looked at it again, and I'm trying to figure out how does taxing to this levy limit mean against this one? I don't have that expertise. And I believe that, I know where this is coming from. And I think that as a council, if we want to change something, now is not the time to do it. We're ready to embark in another financial year, so to speak, and
Season.
thank you. And the committee's ready to get up and running. And to keep putting it off isn't fair to the committee. It's not fair to us, and it's not fair to the town, because we do get, I believe, for me, I would either attend the meetings or I watched them on LCAT when they were available. And I was able to sit with my budget and listen to what they were saying and be able to understand exactly what was going on, so that when it was time for the council to meet with the final budget and make a decision, I was ready. And so to put this off and say it's not important or it's not meaningful, if that's how I read it, I think it's a disappointment. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What makes the FOC experts in this?
Their experience,
Because they're
I
the
would
same
question
people
that.
every year, but I thought Connor could appoint somebody else if he wanted.
well, he could, but I'm not, I'm not arguing
No, this is an honest question.
maybe Kathy's a better one to answer that question.
And just really quick, doesn't Kim and Tom have that kind of level of comfort with the budget that?
Yeah, I like
They
this.
certainly do. And if
And I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just,
Kim more than me.
well, obviously, but I didn't want to.
Okay.
Ouch.
I mean, do they know more than you, or, I mean, are you guys kind of on the same page?
It's a terrible question to ask me.
What did you think of the process last year?
Everybody is bringing something different to the table. In terms of municipal finance, I think that I have more knowledge in that. So I get asked a lot of questions
Okay.
just about the fact that municipal finance is very different from banking.
Right.
It's very different from, a private company or something like
With the
that.
state, yeah.
I think no matter whether it's you looking at it, whether it's them looking at it, you're always going to ask questions that maybe I didn't think of
For time.
or Tom didn't think of. But I do think we spend a lot of time, Tom, myself, Rebecca, sitting down with department heads and walking through every single line item with them.
Okay.
So, even if you look at what our estimates were, like on the department side, the town department side, and then you look at level 1, and then you look at level 2, we've looked at every single line item to bring those numbers down in every level of the budget. It's not my decision whether or not there's an oversight committee or not. But I think it's not a question of like expertise. It's more of a question of just having extra eyes looking at it.
Okay. So whose eyes are?
The eyes have it.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly could move forward with having some version of an FOC, but if we do, I would say the membership would be different and the time constraints will definitely be expedited as part of that process.
So how would the membership be different?
Just who's comprising the committee and how many members there may be on the committee.
Yeah.
But it's a
You
standing.
can't switch you can't switch the number. You
And they
can
weren't
switch the
appointed
people.
back in July, so their appointments
No,
expired.
no. So a standing committee is just that. The committee's standing until such time that the president chooses to remove someone and replace them, just like the liquor licensing committee. That's why we switched from ad hoc, which is set up by a time frame. Hey, this committee is in place for a year or 2 years. Standing committee, from what I understand, is a standing committee until such time as the president chooses to replace a member with someone else.
So
Then in
current,
either way, I can still opt to
Exactly.
switch members on the
Yeah.
committee.
Yep. And that's the prerogative of the president and but I think through the chair, I think the suggestion of posting council meetings at the same time as the financial oversight committee gives us the ability to go in and sit down. Because I have to tell you, a lot of times sitting down as we're doing the budget and asking the questions is a lot easier than in this format. Because you go in and that's all you're talking about. And typically the finance oversight committee will say, we're going to be talking about IT department and this department today. So that you're not looking at the whole budget. You're only looking at those 2 departments. Ahead of time, you come in with multiple questions for it. You ask those questions, they get answered. You give your suggestions. The next week or next meeting, it's this department and this department. And sort of like capital.
I was just gonna say it's kind of like capital, right?
Which we kept the capital committee. And I say we, I'm meaning Tom kept the capital committee. Could he have done it on his own? Probably. But
Thank you.
But he so chooses to reach out to different departments and different people to help him with it. And I think the council's doing the same thing. We're reaching out to different members and asking them to help us. I don't see an issue with that.
No, sorry.
I will ask that having the FOC that's similar to last year, that we shouldn't have department heads going before it. And if we
I
want
agree.
department heads, they should come to a council meeting through coordination with Tom, following the charter. Because I think all of us should hear that, not just whomever's able to attend a random afternoon meeting, because many of us have to work.
I don't believe any department heads can.
Department heads last year for that reason, that they had such a level of scrutiny with Kim and Tom that we felt that the information
Through budget.
Sue brought to us was sufficient.
So I appreciate that sentiment because that's really all I was going to ask was we block off April and May. We're not doing anything else. Got it. But not everybody else does. So if there is a scheduling thing, I know the department heads would say yes in a second. I obviously try to give you the 20,000 foot view and not have people come at night or
Agree.
after hours or whatever. They all will, and they all would. But if we can just, however we can schedule it so that there's as much notice as possible. And, obviously everyone's super busy and not everyone is required to be at every meeting. So, however you want to work it, it really doesn't, again, we're through everything. We didn't, I would say, need the department heads so much because we had been through the budget so many times already by the time financial over it, which would be no different than in a council meeting. I will say this year we'll have less conversations because there isn't a whole lot of ways to go with the existing budget. Some won't be looked at as many times to see where we can, get to a wish list item or improve operations by spending more money. It's just not on the table this year. So as long as there's some sort of schedule that we can, if the department heads are going to be involved, if I can let them know ahead of time, obviously that I appreciate that sentiment because it just would make it easier for everyone.
So I think the thought process last year was, it's not the department head's budget, it's the town manager's budget. And between the town manager and finance director, they should have every answer.
And they did.
And they did. And very, very well done last year. And like I said, I think that went to show that there was no suggestions for changes or whatever. The suggestions that were made were brought up as far as, whether bonding or whether, like I said, take a look at the health insurance, see if there's ways to save that. And those were more the suggestions that came about because we both know there's not a lot of room in this budget. In the past, when another person I knew was on the financial oversight, when they got done with it, his comment to me was, we really don't have a lot of say in this whole budget, maybe 3%. That you can make adjustments to because most of it, like I said,
It's obligation.
You're obligated to pay it. Find a way to come up with it. Good luck. And that's why fiber optics is going to help us.
Can I make just like sort of an overall suggestion too from a public hearing council input standpoint? Because there are some things sort of table this year that could increase the budget if you're thinking different than me, which you can't do once I submit, correct?
We can take away, but we can't add.
Correct.
The only thing we could add is if you didn't submit a line item and didn't submit a 0 as a recommendation.
Oh, I see. Right. If there was an omission. Yeah. An error.
Not even just an error, but if there was like something that you just didn't even think of and there wasn't like a line item in your budget for it at all, but generally that never happens.
We have too many line items and yes, you have the printout.
But typically the council would say to the town manager,
i.e.
you can adjust,
i.e.
if you chose.
The HEROES Act.
What?
The HEROES Act.
Okay.
So that's our next.
We have some options here about 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, whatever, anywhere in between. And if I think that, 50 fits in, just as for instance, fits in better with what we're trying to do. I just don't want to, if you have a decision that you would like to make as a group and I take it away from you by budgeting a certain number, I just think if we can have a conversation about some of your options and my options, because I'd hate to do that. And maybe that's something we'll be there next week. And so maybe if we think about that more in terms of, yes, Diane has all the information laid out for you, but if we can, it's very close to April 1st. If I can get to a point where I think this would be a recommendation, like, you know what I'm saying? I just don't I don't want you to be like, geez, I wish you submitted something different than this, right? And I don't know, and maybe you guys can help me out with the law of that. And that's, if I submit this number, you can't go over that, but can you move this line item and then move this line item so that, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, we can't make any of them higher, even if it's swapping.
Even if it's right. So again, I want to be mindful of decisions you want to make in my recommendation, because it could stop you from doing what you want to do. So I'd like to, if nothing else, plant a seed for the next meeting when we're having this conversation, to sort of walk away with that, with a real idea of what we all want to do. And, or, I don't want to, like I said last week, I don't want to do these, oh, it's because it's my decision anyway, right? I want to make sure we're doing this collaboratively, and I'm not stopping you from doing something you want to do because I made the numbers work in such a way.
So through the chair,
Sure.
the HEROES Act, that's based on the money being appropriated, isn't it? So let's say we say, hey, we'd like to go 100%, but that fiscal year, we're only able to appropriate enough to cover 50%.
Mhm.
I think the HEROES Act is only based on what's appropriated. So if not enough's appropriated, obviously you can't give out that much.
So you're not locked into it.
That's the way I read it. Again, 22J, 22H, 22.
Yeah. No, and again, I didn't mean to sort of spring this conversation 2 weeks early. And then that was an example off the top of my head. I just want to, I don't want to shy away from having all the conversations. And I think, to be perfectly honest, some of our budget process could be fast tracked even more in terms of how quickly we get to May, whatever. And we're like, oh man, if we can have more conversations more of the time. And again, that's a big, huge time constraint. We don't get the first iteration of the state budget till, the end of January, early February. It's kind of hard to get that going any quicker than we do. But maybe we have those more meetings before April 1st so that we kind of all know where we're coming from. I'm just thinking about how to make it better so that we're all on the same page. And when that day comes, we're all comfortable with what you're voting on.
I think the HEROES Act, if, let's say we voted at 50% this year, and then we chose next year to increase it,
Move it, yeah.
we can move it.
Oh, of course.
Each year.
Oh, yeah.
Annual.
No, and this is the conversation that we have with all these things. The thing that we're dealing with is this increase in the budget under the law. So if we get to a point where we can't do 100%, but we want to, we do 50 this year and the increase is only this, and then we do the other 50 the next year and we get to 100% in 2 years. These are all, we're getting ahead of ourselves with our conversation for next week, but this is what I'm getting at. I don't want to have that mindset and you say, nope, I don't care what you got to do, get that 100%. And at that point, it's already too late because I've submitted a budget at 50% or 100%, whatever. So yeah, just talking out loud.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
The makeup of the FLC, it's a couple counselors.
Historically, I think has been 2.
And then is there 3 appointed?
Yes.
The Connor's always ex officio on any committees.
Okay, so just thinking, if there's 2 of us, say it's me and Kathy, Ralph's going anyways. You're going anyways.
That I'm not sure of this year. I would, like I said.
Just, I don't know if that helps anybody kind of think about it in that sense, like.
It's basically another council meeting.
Yeah.
More people that attend.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, any other discussion on the budget?
So I'm going to go back to the budget. And let me just see if I can, under the recap summary, is there any way, Kim, to do a recap summary, but take out the line excluded debt it is so hard with that excluded debt in there to do a year by year comparison. Especially now, like this year jumped 5,574,000, which really skews the numbers when you start looking at like projected tax rate. Because a big chunk of that tax rate is going to be covering that $5 million. And so you can't look back a year and go, well, wait a minute, last year was 1840 and now it's going to be over $20.
That's the multicolored bar graph. That's on the next page. We just didn't give you that.
The next page, you don't have it, tells you how much of your tax rate is actually excluded debt, which is,
Well, then,
I think the estimate's like $1 or, I don't know, it's $1.30 or something like that.
this is,
That's something like that.
understand.
Again, just, it's one of those things that it's there. You can't change it.
True, but excluded debt was in it last year, so it was part of your tax rate.
Well, I wanted it out last year too.
I mean, if you're looking,
It was $1 million last year, which was about a quarter. So it's like, okay, well, I can minus that.
if you're looking to compare year to year, that's why I separated the town budget out, debt, excluded debt, insurance, health insurance. They're all separate and they all have separate percentage increases so that you can look at just the town departments and see how much those go up. You can look at just the school and see how much that goes up. You can look at excluded debt specifically by itself. And then general fund debt is separate from that. So you can see in terms of general fund debt, how much we had last year versus this year. It's actually going down. I'm not sure. I mean, if I took it out, I think I'd have to take it out for every year.
Oh, that's fine with me. Excluded debt's excluded. We have to pay it. It's excluded because the voters voted on it.
Part of your tax rate, and I don't
The
like
equation.
taking out tax rates that don't actually include excluded debt. I might be able to find another way to arrange it so that you can see two different tax rates maybe. If that helps.
This is my favorite sheet, Ralph.
This is your favorite sheet?
It is.
Okay. If it's possible, great. If it's too difficult, I understand.
Like a,
Nothing's ever too difficult though for our,
would it be like a separate snapshot? Like we can't mess with the recap sheet.
Yes, I wouldn't.
It would be a separate,
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah. And other than that, I will wait until we actually get the level 1, 2.
You sure, Rob?
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to change in the next 3 weeks, monumentally. So we'll just keep banging away at it.
How long before our revenue comes in for municipal light plant?
All right, if there's no other discussion, we'll move to our next item under financial matters, which is approving the town manager to enter into a contract exceeding 3 years for material recovery facilities.
So before we make that motion, on page 2 of the document, you will see under contaminated loads, it says $300 per ton for reloading. But on page 16, under the example, it is actually $300 per load, which could be a huge difference. So I think on page 2, the wording is just incorrect. I believe it's supposed to read $300 per load instead of per ton. You see it on
Yeah.
page 2 under contaminated?
Yep.
That should be 300 per load. And I
On
based
page
that
2,
on page 2.
because it says throughout this section.
So if you actually go to, what is it, 4.5.2, which is page 16, it clearly gives you an example that it's $300 to reload. And truthfully, if it's $300 per ton, average truck is 7 tons, that means they're going to charge you $2,100 to put the stuff back in the truck, which would be a huge increase from the previous.
Okay.
I just think they wrote per ton instead of per load.
So we will,
Double check.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I did read the whole
No,
document.
that's good on you.
I have to say, I was surprised. I mean, one year we actually received money for the recyclables, but the amount that we get per ton changes so much. It's amazing. It'll go from $123 we're getting per ton for them
Yeah.
down to 80 to even less. And it's nice that we're getting something, which is good. I mean, it helps offset it, but
Yeah. It all,
and then at 3.5% increase every year now. 5 years, all of a sudden, that's another 17-8% that it.
it's interesting the way that that's sort of, those percentages make such a big difference, right? Here we are bound by 2.5 and everything goes up by more than 2.5 every year. And how do you make it work?
Other than that, I've got nothing.
Funny.
You save the town thousands of dollars.
It's amazing.
Potentially.
Actually,
What's that?
how many contaminated loads do we have a year? That's something to look up. I would guess that you don't have many on recyclables, if any, so.
Is there a motion?
I'm not ready.
I make a motion to approve the town manager to authorize the Material Recovery Facility, MRF, contract for a period exceeding 3 years per Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 12.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes,
And John?
I'm a yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Next, we have approval of minutes. We have our February 25th meeting. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the February 25th, 2025 open session minutes. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Jim?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
yes.
And John?
I'm a yes.
Great. And we have approving the March 5th special meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the March 11th, 2025 open session.
Second.
I guess we typoed that. It's supposed to be
Special.
March 5th, not March 11th.
March 5th.
Special minutes.
Yeah, 11th
March 11th.
tonight.
Tough. Jackie's good, but she's not that good.
5 open session minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Jim?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes,
And John?
I'm going to abstain because I was not in attendance.
Thank you. Under old business, we have a first reading for proposed zoning bylaw amendment relative to assisted living. This was something that came before us originally as a recommendation, but a public hearing hadn't been held yet from the planning board, but now planning board held a public hearing on February 18th. So now it's before the council for us to move the process along. So let's see. So dated to the council and our clerk from Rob Wachilla, our director of planning, on February 19th. He said at the February 18th, 2025 meeting of the East Long Meadow Planning Board, the board reviewed proposed amendments to the town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaw for the amendment 3-1 schedule of use regulations to allow for the use category convalescent, assisted living, congregate elderly, handicapped housing, or nursing home allowed by special permit in the Industrial Garden Park zoning district. The board voted unanimously to send their recommendations to the town council and encouraged that they review and adopt the amendments as presented. Text in blue underline indicates language to be included, while red strike through text indicates language to be deleted. Language that is highlighted are additional recommendations included by the planning board. The advertised public hearing and the board's discussion on this vote are duly noted in the minutes and the recordings of their February 18th, 2025 meeting. Respectfully submitted, Robert Wachilla, the Director of Planning. And the only change under Table 3-1 Schedule of Use Regulations, bylaw number 14, land use classification, convalescent, assisted living, congregate elderly, handicapped housing, or nursing home, standards and conditions, see Article 8. Everything remains the same except for Industrial Garden Park changing from no to special permit. The shortest first reading I think we've done. Something in ages.
So through the chair.
Sure.
Our rules and regs basically state that this shall be submitted to the Planning Matters Subcommittee. Based on the fact that it's an N to an FP and that's the only thing, I would make a motion that we not send this to the Planning Matters Subcommittee, that the town council can handle this on their own.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Jim,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And John?
I'm a yes.
Okay, great. So then I think from here, there's no votes that we're taking on the matter because we'll have to do a second hearing and post and advertise that, which probably wouldn't be until April. I'm
Are you
assuming.
talking about the assisted living?
Yeah.
I already posted it for the next meeting.
Oh,
We're all set.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, ahead of schedule.
Quick.
So we will do the second reading for that on March 25th. Unless there's any other comments or questions we have before then. Okay. Next, under old business, we have reviewing the revised language for the capital stabilization fund policy.
Hi. So I literally tried to keep this as simple as possible. Can you tell? Basically just adding that this account is specifically related to municipal buildings at the end of the, had we thought of that at some point, we could have called it something else, but I think that involves voting and all that stuff. So I think just adding that line at the end that it's specifically for municipal building purposes only, pretty much covers it.
Fair enough.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions?
So do we need a motion to approve the change?
I don't
Yeah.
think
Yep,
so.
it's here. So I make a motion to approve the revised language for the capitalization fund policy as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Jim,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And John?
I'm a yes.
Hey, great.
Thank you.
New business. We have approving the conflict of interest training requirement exemptions. Normally I would ask Jeannie for an overview, but since we have the whole order.
I can tell you how it started.
Sure.
So our office got a phone call. The interns had to do the ethics training. And when we looked into it, we found that there are exemptions from the ethics training. And it's mostly seasonal and temporary workers that have no authorization or supervisory responsibilities. So I announced it to department heads if they think they have any of these positions to let me know. And I gathered a list that I'd let the Ethics Commission look at and review, and this is the list that we came up with. So what they had suggested is that we have something voted on by the council, we can memorialize it and have it on record, that these certain positions do not have to do the ethics training.
That makes sense. All right. So then in order of the East Long Meadow Town Council exempting certain categories of public employees from the education and training requirements of the Conflict of Interest Law based on the State Ethics Commission's Conflict of Interest Law Education and Training Guidelines. Summary, Chapter 28 of the Acts of 2009, the Ethics Reform Law amending the Conflict of Interest Law imposes education and training requirements on public employers and public employees. The law authorizes the Commonwealth Ethics Commission to establish procedures to implement and ensure compliance with these requirements, and these implementation procedures are issued pursuant to that authority. Ideally, all public employees in the Commonwealth would be trained in the Conflict of Interest Law. However, cost and other practical circumstances require that a principled way be found to exempt certain categories of public employees from the education and training requirements without compromising the objectives of these requirements. Therefore, the Commission establishes guidelines to enable public employers to determine which of their employees are exempt from the education and training requirements. Additional information relative to these guidelines and examples can be found on mass.gov. This order requests exemption from the following positions in the town of East Long Meadow: senior work-off abatement program participants, election workers, lifeguards, camp counselors, basketball monitors, rental monitor, basketball scorekeepers, crossing guards. Be it ordered by the East Long Meadow Town Council that these positions above are exempted from the education and training requirements of the Conflict of Interest Law based upon the Commonwealth Ethics Commission's Conflict of Interest Law Education and Training Guidelines, provided, however, that such positions shall remain subject to all other applicable provisions of the Conflict of Interest Law. Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Jim?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And John?
I'm a no.
Okay. Motion passes. Action items for next meeting. We know we have the HEROES Act that we'll be discussing. Diane had provided the very detailed information and charts of possibilities for us.
Would you like me to stay in here and or Marty,
Yes.
Someone from
the
that.
board?
Yeah, I think Diane was planning to come here, right, Jeannie?
Right, I think we're gonna have it tonight. She's on vacation or coming back probably as we speak.
She's
Yeah.
coming back. Yeah.
March 25th.
I'll just be sure that somebody's here from the board.
That sounds good. Perfect. Any other action items? I don't think so. Nothing else that I can think of. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Jim?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yeah.
Marilyn?
Yeah.
Ralph?
Yes.
And John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Bye, John.